successful in a part of that work. So I think that's what got us to where we are now. Today I'm going to go through what our role actually is within the overall process, because I think there's a lot of misunderstanding generally about what our role is in delivering the assessments for this service. Then we're going to walk through how the claimant journey will be, so what it will be in terms of engaging with ourselves and how the assessments, how the consultations will work, and so on and so forth. And then I'll give you an overview of what we've actually stood up as a service, show you what we've got in place for the go live area. I won't have the details for the national rollout, which is happening from 10th of June onwards, but at least you'll get a flavour about the control go live area, and you'll see the kind of level of numbers of assessment centres and locations and so on. I hope you can see this. Just what I wanted to get across here with this is just to show what our role actually is. And of course, DWP are responsible entirely for the overall benefit. They're responsible for policy, the eligibility criteria, the assessment descriptors, and indeed the guidelines that we use in order to apply the descriptors. And Colin's been through that pretty well in a number of things. And so we are completely controlled by those. We've trained our health practitioners to deliver those, but against the criteria that are entirely set by DWP. So basically what happens is they come in from here, they come from DWP, referrals come to us, we will do an initial evaluation, so we will receive the claim form and we'll receive any additional evidence that comes with that. And we will make an assessment. If it's possible to look at that assessment and find out there is sufficient evidence there that what is stated in the questionnaire is entirely consistent, and that we could make a reasoned and clinical review of that in order to be able to provide a good report back to DWP. We will do so without having to call anybody in for a consultation. So that is entirely dependent on there being sufficient evidence right up front. If there isn't evidence, or there isn't sufficient evidence, we'll certainly call for more. If even then we find that we can't actually make a full report and we need to see somebody, we will call them in and for a face-to-face consultation. Both of those processes will end up with a fully justified report by a health practitioner being sent back to DWP. And at that point, the DWP decision makers then will review that together with any other information that they might have and come up with a decision. So our whole process is around looking at the assessment process, looking at the evidence that is there, and coming up with essentially a considered review so that we can provide a fully justified report back to DWP.
Just a quick question. Where does the face-to-face consultation take place?
Well, there's two choices there. One would be in your home, and alternatively in a consultation centre. And we expect that the vast majority will be in consultation centres, but they'll be relatively local to where people live. There are many more centres than there currently are under the current existing programmes of work capability and so on. So they are more local, but generally speaking, we are anticipating that most people, I would say, we would expect about 25% of the people to be handled with the paper-based review alone. So in a quarter of the cases, we'd expect to have enough information up front to be able to provide that fully justified report to DWP without having to see somebody. Of the remaining 75% that we would expect to have to be seen face-to-face, perhaps about 8% of those would be seen in people's homes. The remainder would be seen in consultation centres.
Excuse me, sorry. Is the DWP, is that a private company or is that a government-based company?
DWP is government, so...
Is ATOS a private company or a government policy?
We're a private organisation, yes, we're placed on the stock exchange.
So my question is, essentially, if when G said, you say like from June onwards or whatever, if we're in the process of doing something in the meantime in the future with you guys and something goes wrong with the company, do we have to think all our paperwork, everything's out there, scanned, running, shredded, or is it protected? Are we protected through you as well as we are with DWP?
You're completely protected. DWP have placed very stringent requirements on us to be able to handle information securely and safely. I will mention it in a bit, but we will have 2 delivery centres essentially that are handling the back office activities, and that's entirely for disaster recovery activities, so that information is protected and secure, and we will be able to make sure we can run the service. Even if, say, one of the buildings burnt down, we'd be able to move the service elsewhere. And we are under very strict, tight guidelines determined by DWP, so we deliver against those.
Are they as strict and as tight as those you were asked to observe during the Paralympics?
And I don't know what they were during the Paralympics, so I'm not sure how those. I'm not sure how they compare. I'm afraid I don't actually know the answer to that. I mean, Colin, do you know? I don't know. I can tell you that they are very, very strict. The security requirements that are placed upon us are greater than generally exist, say, in the NHS and so on, because as we have subcontracted part of our work and the assessments to NHS organisations, they've had to increase some of their security requirements in order to meet the demands of DWP. So I can give you that as a relative measure.
And the last bit, so what I'm saying is that the money now that the government is trying to save with regards to disabled people and so forth, is that going to be the funds that are going to be helping to pay for your department to get going?
Well, obviously we have bid, and the government has decided to ask people to bid to deliver these assessments. There was a competitive tender, so there were 10 organisations invited to bid against those things. We were one of the successful bidders, so it is as cheap as it can be, because of course it's a competitive tender, and the reason for doing that was to keep the cost down. So it is as inexpensive as it can be. Atos has been trading for a long time, yes. Yes, and it's a secure organisation. I don't expect you to be able to see this in detail, but it's a bit of an aid memoir, I think, for me, as I'll just talk you through how the claimant journey will work. Right, okay, so we start off receiving a referral from the DWP. When it comes into our office, and this will be up in the Stockton office at the moment, it will be reviewed by our health practitioners who will be sitting there. They are trained to look at the evidence, look at what's said in the form. The first thing that they will handle are the terminally ill cases, because for those if they're flagged up as somebody with a terminal illness, they have to be returned to DWP within 48 hours. And that's a very fast turnaround. We wouldn't expect anybody to be called in for a consultation for that. We would actually just deal with that based on the information that we have, and if needs be, they will telephone other practitioners to find additional information, and then return that report back to DWP within 48 hours. They'll also look at the information that's been provided on the form, and in fact, if they suspect that somebody might be a terminally ill person, but haven't flagged that up, or hasn't been flagged up by DWP, they will treat it as a TI case and return that to DWP very quickly, so that none of those things actually fall through the cracks. The second part is that they will look at it and see whether additional evidence is required. So often we will have evidence provided. I think it's going to be absolutely critical for Pleasant Dwellers payment that more evidence is provided up front with the questionnaires and so on. I think that's absolutely critical. I think the success of all of this will be the quality and amount of evidence that is provided with the forms right at the beginning, so that we can handle them effectively.
Can I ask a question on evidence? I mean, how contemporaneous should that be?
The important thing for evidence is that it's consistent with what's entered into the form. So I think that's what the health professionals will be looking for, to make sure that it is relevant and timely. So if it's a condition which doesn't change over a great amount of time, but it's not particularly contemporaneous evidence, it'll still be relevant. I mean, you know, because if it's a long-term unchanging condition, then clearly it'll still be relevant. If it's a condition that's changing, then probably it would be better if it was more recent. It will all be treated on an individual basis.
So, for example, in my case, I guess in one of the cases of this where my wife's got secondary progressive MS, she was diagnosed a year ago, she might have to put in a PIP claim for another 3 years, sort of 2015, 2016 or whatever. Would you expect to get a letter from her consultant nearer the time to reconfirm something that he said in 2011?
I think that each case will have to be handled on its own. I couldn't possibly say at this stage. We certainly wouldn't expect anybody to go and ask for additional evidence prior to submitting their questionnaire to the DWP and then even passing it to us. We will go and seek additional evidence if we require to see it. So, you know, certainly if that's the case, if you have additional evidence, if there is more stuff available at the time, then please send it, because that's the important thing. But certainly we're not expecting anybody to go and additionally ask for additional evidence in order to be able to provide it with the form, but we do want them to send what they have.
So would you send all the information that you can with everything? So would you basically photocopy all your documents? Would it only have to be like the present ones, the latest ones? Or could you do past ones which just explain everything?
I can't really say clearly an answer to that, because I think it needs to be, you know, relevant and supporting evidence. Clearly, we don't want people who have got, you know, acres and acres of you know, past, you know, hospital appointments or whatever to send everything through. But certainly relevant things that are relevant to the condition and your current state, I think, is what we would want to see. Yeah, I think that would be appropriate.
The way we work is that if the most comprehensive letter you've had from your MS nurse is in fact 18 months old, but you've had nothing subsequently, I mean, that's it. And you can just send that in, so you just say, it's counted then, it works now. Presumably, it's what's relevant rather than the date on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so certainly we'll be going around this step here looking for additional evidence. It then comes through, we look at that, and if we decide we need to see somebody face to face, we will then consider further whether that person would be seen in their home or whether we would ask them to come into a consultation centre.
Sorry, you would decide or they would decide?
We would decide.
In consultation with the person concerned?
If it's decided that they would be invited to a consultation centre, certainly they'll be sent an appointment letter. If they want to change that, or if they want to ask for it to be seen in their home, they'll certainly be able to do that, and certainly we will engage in a dialogue about it. But generally speaking, the guidelines that would be given for DWP about the roughly 8% of people would be seen in their homes is what we're working to. So we would be looking for you know, supporting evidence or supporting difficulties associated with that. So generally speaking, that is where we're going from. I mean, it is a bone of contention. It's something that we are, you know, we will be reviewing, but it's part of the business model that we've set up. That's what we were asked to do, and certainly that's the way we're going to approach it at the moment. It's not a free right to have a home consultation.
Where does this 8%, we should have asked Collins, where does this 8% figure come from? How do you justify saying that probably 8% are the only percentage?
That was from the government, and we were asked to bid to that figure.
That comes from the...
Yeah. Yes,
I
that
wasn't
was
aware of that, so that's, you know...
It was in the original tender.
You weren't aware of it?
It was in the invitation to tender document, and they
I've
suggested...
seen the contract, obviously, so... It's,
Yeah.
so
Well, yes. The contracts are all on the internet now, so that was all up there, so you can see, but that's where it came from. Okay, so the claimant will be sent a letter informing them whether they're going to have a home consultation or whether they're going to be asked to come into a consultation centre. They can contact us to either change the date or change the time, or to tell us about any other requirements they might have. They might need an interpreter, they might need somebody else there to support them, they might need a same-gender health practitioner and so on. So any of those things, they can contact us by phone, and we will make that arrangement for them.
Would you, by and large, you welcome somebody else there, a member of the family or an advocate?
Yeah, absolutely welcome. Companions being brought, it's yes, completely open. We would hope people will bring companions with them, and yeah, no, we're very, very welcoming of companions.
And they're not, and you will listen to what they have to say rather than, I mean, with ESA, basically, when I go along, they don't want to hear from me.
Well, I'd have to say that it's the companion is there as a supporter of the individual. The health professional is there to work with and consult with the claimant. So where companions are there clarifying what the claimant is saying and so on, absolutely, that's entirely right. If the companions were in some way dominating the conversation and you were no longer able to really hear what it was that the claimant was saying, that would be, I think, unacceptable. But that's, it's important that the health professional is there to engage in the dialogue in all ways, and we do want to hear from companions as well as from the claimants, but it should be a fair hearing of what the claimant can say.
Will we be allowed to record these consultations?
Not as it stands at the moment, because that's not a requirement of the bid. So DWP have said that they don't require these to be recorded. I don't know, do you want to say any more about recordings?
As far as I'm aware, the machinery isn't actually available at the
What
moment
about if we
either.
want to record them ourselves?
I don't think at the moment that's also...
You can record them yourselves if you tell us beforehand, but you have to be able to provide two similar copies, so you have to be either on CD or on cassette tape at the same time, so you have to be able to leave a copy with the health professional at the time. So that, at the time, yes.
That's the issue.
I don't make up the rules, you know,
The
but
actual
that's...
machine that does that isn't available anymore, I'm told. That's what I'm told.
There are only about 8 available in the whole country.
Well, yeah, but those are in the work capability arena, and of course that's not what we're doing under PIP. There's no requirement specified by the department to be able to record
Which
assessments.
actually means that there's no recourse. If what's written down is different from what the claimant has said, there's no recourse for the claimant.
Well, there isn't necessarily a recording, but there's certainly a recourse, because you can have a reconsideration and it can go further on to appeal. I think yes, you're looking at a bit of worst case scenario, but yeah. Okay.
Can we get a copy of it?
Have you got it?
Can we get a copy of the report?
Yes, you can ask for a copy of the report from DWP. Atos Healthcare won't have copies of the report. We don't keep those. They sit on the electronic system. But if you want to see a copy of the report once it's been submitted to DWP, you can request it directly from them, and they will provide it.
Is that as soon as the report has been done, or is it only when you come to appeal the claim?
To be honest, I don't know.
If it was a successful claim, there'd be no point in you seeing the actual... Sorry. If the claim was successful, if it was a successful claim, there'd be no point in you seeing the actual assessment details. But obviously, like now, if it goes to a review or an appeal, if you wanted to see the information, then you could do, yes. But you won't see the actual scores. There's no scoring attached to that.
But for example, my husband had a claim for ESA, and it took a year from when we tried to appeal it to when we were actually taken for the tribunal, and we weren't able to get a sight of the report until about 2 weeks prior to the tribunal, which only left us 2 weeks to prepare.
Right, the work capability assessment is very different to personal independence payment. They are completely different benefits and completely different contracts that Atos have got. But there's certainly the actual report is available. But if it was successful, there'd be no point, would there? You would actually have the benefit in payment. You wouldn't need to see it. I do accept if it was a reconsideration or an appeal, then you may need to. But without actually going down that road, you wouldn't need to see it anyway.
I realise that,
Yeah.
but for example, my husband, he appealed. It took a year before the tribunal was organised, and in that time we were not allowed to see the report until 2 weeks prior or 3 weeks prior to the actual tribunal date, which gave us very little time to prepare our counter-arguments about what had been said.
As I say, they are two completely different setups. The work capability assessment is different to the assessments being done for PIP. Definitely.
I mean, even if your PIP claim was successful, surely under freedom of information, we could ask for a copy of that.
If you wanted to, of course, but I wouldn't see why you wouldn't, if it was successful, why you would need it. Yeah, if you wanted to, yes, by all means.
We're
Yeah.
perfectly entitled to ask.
Yeah. But the scores will not be on there, and it'll be a copy of the report. The actual scoring will not be sent out.
We can ask for a copy of the report,
Yeah.
whether it's successful.
Indeed. Yeah. Okay.
But I guess the decision then is to explain the score then, because that comes from the DWP.
I'm not sure it's going to mention the numbers. I don't think it is. I'll check. I've got some stuff with me.
Okay. So at this point, the parent has received an invitation letter to, let's say, a consultation centre. They have an opportunity to call us and to tell us about any special needs they have or about any changes to the date and time that they would like to do. At that point, they're invited to the centre. The consultation centres are part of a supply chain, a network of organisations that we have contracted with to deliver these services. They are providing the accommodation and the health professionals. So they're both, there are networks of physiotherapists and occupational therapists and nurses. There are also NHS providers who are providing some of these services. So there's a range of those. I'll show you in a moment where they sit across the control go live area. There'll be similar maps eventually that will show where they are around this area too. But I'll show you the ones about the control go live area in a moment. For the consultation itself, we've spent great effort trying to make sure we train our health professionals to have a fully engaged consultation. So asking people to sit essentially side by side. We're certainly making it very clear that we want the claimants to be able to see what's on the screen so that there is nothing hidden there, that there's no way that anybody's recording something that they're not able to see or understand. We're certainly saying to our health professionals that they need to explain what it is that they are recording about them and so on, so that is a very clear thing. And I think it's important that we do this so that when people do see their reports at the end of the day, actually they can recognise the individual person in that report. That we don't want to have any of the things that we have heard in the past, that it looked like it was an entirely different person that was reported on. I think we don't want that to be the case. And we're certainly stressing that these things must be consistent and achieved well. So that's what we're trying to do.
Sorry, just one question. When you have a consultation, if you basically say, please, we want to see you on this day, do you arrange the transport to be picked up and brought to wherever back in, or something that we have to do and pay for?
We pay expenses to get to there. So we pay expenses both for claimants and for companions. And so on.
In the past, I appreciate you're saying it's a different system, but in the past, there's been some leading questions. One of the first questions is how did you get here, and then immediately you're ticking a box or unticking a box. And the GP that we saw, my husband saw, I had to explain to him what symptoms were regarding MS. He had no understanding of it whatsoever. Are there going to be more, people that have more understanding in the symptoms because they're clearly not always visible?
The important thing is that all of the health professionals have gone through a pretty extensive training. They are, if you like, current ones. They're going through this. I think, as with any health professional, you wouldn't expect everybody to know everything about all conditions, and I think that is going to be the case, that they won't know absolutely all details about all conditions. I think it would be unreasonable. Even GPs have to go away and consult documentation to find out about conditions.
But then this person is making a decision, and I'm like that lady over there, 11 months before we went to tribunal, he was in front of a judge for 5 minutes. His wife had MS, he totally understood. We could have lost our house in that time. So I think it's a little bit flippant to say that, that's not a consideration, when surely...
I'm not saying it's not a consideration. What I am saying is that the health professionals are trained. They're trained across details of a wide range of disabilities. The key part about the consultation is that they have engaged with the individual, they understand exactly how the condition affects their daily living, and that they come up with a properly justified report. And it is a dialogue, it's a conversation that takes place, and that's the important part of it.
Well, my husband will tell you all day long he's fine, and he has no problems, and that I've got to get around that, and the person that we spoke to didn't want to talk to me whatsoever.
well, that's a case in point where a companion being present to actually put an alternate view is actually a really helpful thing.
If they want to talk to you, but the guy we saw didn't want to hear from you whatsoever.
The health professionals will certainly engage with the companions and certainly listen to what you have to say. There's no doubt about that.
Social services part of help this thing like this?
No.
No.
Okay. There's quite a bit of information available in all sorts of areas. We've got a website that went live today where you can go online and have a look at all the processes that go through, how you might come to us and so on. There are various mechanisms for getting feedback. There are certainly things like the complaints leaflets or feedback leaflets and so on. You can go online and have a look at those, or you can ask for those to be sent to you so you can fill them in paper. They're certainly available at consultation centres as well. And then after the consultation, after the claimants left the room, the health professionals do have to finish their report, so they have to then consider what's been sent, they have to look at any evidence that's been left behind, that's been offered, there's more recent evidence that's been brought to the consultation with them, and then they finish off their report and then they send that off to DWP. I should say in there that we don't assign any points. All we're doing is providing the fully justified report. We certainly don't have any targets for any levels that we're meant to be applying. There are none of those in existence. The only things that we are targeted on are timeliness of how quickly respond to arranging consultations or sending reports back, and the quality of the reports that we do, so that we must achieve high standards of quality for all of those reports. So if anything that is falling below that is sent back to us by DWP, then certainly we have to rework those at no additional cost to DWP and so on. I think this is a critical area. That quality one is one where we have to be very good at it. Just on the controlled go-live area, essentially the controlled go-live area is the northeast and the northwest of England. It's operating between today, the 8th of April, up until the 10th of June, when we go live nationally. In this region, and this will kind of mirror what it will look like across the rest of the country, but in this region we've got about 34 different sites, and you can see that, you may not be able to see where they are in particular, but you see they're well spread across the region. We're going to have about 64 consultation rooms, currently got about 80 odd health professionals in place. We've got about 48 of those sit within the supply chain, and about 33 of them sit within our central office. And those central ones are doing the paper-based reviews, and they're also doing the audit activities for other people's ones that come from the supply chain. And about 8 of those 33 are doing the home consultations. So, we've got about 30 odd administration staff. That Stockton office is the one that we've stood up at the moment. That's the service delivery centre at the moment. There'll be another service delivery centre which will end up being in Glasgow, which will provide the kind of backup and disaster recovery support and so on. And certainly that will also be necessary as the numbers ramp up for the national rollout. I think the thing to point out here is that there are many more locations than there currently are for things like work capabilities. So, these things are generally much closer to where people live, so they're not as far away, and that's one of the reasons why we think we can invite people into relatively local consultation centres. That said, people who live in rural areas will still have further to travel. That is the case, but that has always been the case. When we're looking at the things that Atos does versus the things that our supply chain do, the supply chain is doing the face-to-face consultations. They're providing the training for their staff, although we train their trainers, and we have developed all of the material that's been signed off by DWP, and they will provide the local face-to-face activity for inviting people into the reception centre. So they'll provide the forms for claiming expenses and so on, that sort of thing. What Atos Healthcare will do is we do all the paper-based reviews, we do the home consultations, We provide the customer service centre where we change the appointments and allocate interpreters and so on. But we also do the whole resource management element of looking at mapping where the referrals are coming from and where we need to have more people who will be able to support those. Yes, we provide the IT infrastructure. There's a